Welcome to today's Explainer. We're jumping right into a massive psychological and financial trap that's hiding in plain sight. In fact, it might be sitting in your driveway right now. We're going to break down the shockingly high cost of modern vehicle ownership and unpack this fascinating concept from our source material called Automotive Stockholm Syndrome. Get ready, because we are doing a deep dive into the true price of letting a vehicle dictate your financial freedom.
Okay, let's dive into this. Picture this. You're cruising down the highway, right? And you find yourself stopped at a light behind one of those gleaming monsters. You absolutely know the ones I'm talking about. A brand new lifted truck with chrome everything, spotless tires, and leather seats that literally cost more than your monthly rent.
You look at that vehicle and, well, it's so easy to think, wow, they must be doing great. But the source data paints a really stark contrast between that illusion of chrome and leather success and what's actually going on behind the scenes. The reality? The person behind the wheel is highly likely lying awake at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, doing frantic mental math. Because that truck isn't just a reliable way to get from point A to point B anymore. It's morphed into a $70,000 personality trait that is quietly dismantling their future security. And this brings us to a core concept: identity debt. The truth that the auto industry has spent billions of marketing dollars to hide is that they aren't actually selling you transportation anymore. They're selling you a lifestyle. They are selling an identity. Your truck is relentlessly marketed as this bold statement to the world that you're successful, you're reliable, and you are incredibly hardworking. Let's be real, most people don't buy a $70,000 truck because they actually have $70,000 worth of stuff to haul every day. They buy it because they're terrified of what a reliable 10-year-old used sedan says about their success in life. But when you buy into that marketing fantasy, something fascinating and honestly kind of terrifying happens psychologically. You develop what our sources clinically term Automotive Stockholm Syndrome. This is basically becoming so emotionally attached to your financial captor that you'll actually defend the payment, even as it prevents you from providing for your family's actual future. People genuinely start to justify a catastrophic financial mistake, convincing themselves, hey, it's just a necessary investment in myself. So the crucial point is that it all boils down to one staggering number: $1,200. Over the last decade, we have somehow, as a culture, completely normalized these massive monthly car payments: $900, $1,000, or even $1,200 just to get to work. Think about how much of your hard-earned paycheck that actually represents. It's an enormous chunk of a typical household income, and it's silently drained every single month simply for the privilege of driving a depreciating asset off the lot. Let me put that into perspective using a brilliant analogy straight from our source text. If you told someone you spent $1,200 a month on coffee, they'd stage an intervention. I mean, it's dark humor for sure, but it's incredibly accurate. It highlights just how insane this expense is compared to literally any other daily habit. But when it's a truck or an SUV, society just kind of nods along and says, well, you really need reliable transportation. Now, to make these massive numbers seemingly fit into a normal middle-class budget, the financial system relies on extending the timeline. Welcome to what the sources call the 84-month financial horror movie. You're signing up for a 7-year loan. Just think about that time frame for a second. You are paying a massive premium, often with compounded interest, for a vehicle long after the depreciation curve has totally crushed its value. It's long lost that new car smell, and you are completely underwater on what you actually owe the bank. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is what happens when you systematically lay out the brutal math. It is super sobering. Let's walk through this 7-year breakdown for a typical vehicle. You start with a relatively modest $55,000 base truck loan, then add in about $250 a month for insurance, factor in the fuel, the constant maintenance, new tires over those 7 years. Over the life of that 84-month loan, your total spent is a staggering $130,000. And at the end of the whole shebang, your final residual value, like what that asset is actually worth if you tried to sell it, is maybe $15,000. Just let that sink in for a moment. You're spending over $130,000 to end up with a $15,000 asset. As the source material powerfully states, that isn't just buying a car, it's pure wealth destruction with cup holders. It is an absolute mathematical black hole sitting right there in your driveway, quietly eating away at your future. So, what does this all mean? How do we build a realistic pathway out of this trap? Well, let's move to and see how this builds across 3 focused steps to reclaim your freedom. Step 1, say no to the status trap. Just refuse to play the game. Step 2, fund your $10,000 cortisol break. And step 3, build $20,000 in walking away money. Reclaiming your power always starts with that very first empowering word, no. Let's look a little closer at step 2, the cortisol break. When you choose a reliable used car instead of that shiny new truck, you aren't settling. Actually, you are actively funding this milestone, reaching your first $10,000 in savings. And the research highlights that having this specific financial buffer literally changes your biology. It lowers your stress hormones. It means that when a check engine light eventually comes on, it's no longer a financial catastrophe that ruins your entire month. It becomes a biological intervention that turns that check engine light into just a minor annoyance. But we don't stop there. The next threshold elevates you from basic survival to true independence and power. $20,000 in the bank. Once you push the monthly savings from the vehicle you didn't buy up to this number, the entire trajectory of your life shifts. You transition from playing defense to playing offense. You aren't just surviving unexpected repair bills anymore. You're actually building a fortress around your lifestyle and your career. At this point, you've officially crossed into what the source calls walking away money. This is your ultimate superpower. With this buffer, you could quit your job tomorrow and survive for months while finding something better. You negotiate from a position of profound strength rather than desperation. And ironically enough, this lack of fear often attracts better job offers and higher pay. People like your bosses, your clients, they notice when you aren't operating out of panic. You literally walk into a room differently when you aren't chained to a $1,200 truck payment. And this brilliantly illustrates what it actually means to win the game of life. Look at the stark contrast here. The guy in the shiny $70,000 truck is stressed to the max, just one missed paycheck away from total disaster. Meanwhile, the person driving a perfectly fine 2015 Honda has $20,000 sitting securely in the bank. Real wealth isn't a shiny object in your driveway. Real wealth is freedom. It's the margin in your monthly budget that actually lets you sleep soundly at night. The person in that older Honda is the one actually winning. Now, the absolute beauty of this entire concept is that you can start building that foundation today, even if it's just $50 a month. $50 that you consciously redirect from identity debt straight into your own freedom. The goal here is to start doing the math that actually sets you free so you can finally take a deep, stress-free breath. So I want to leave you with this final, powerful question to ponder as we wrap up this explainer. Are you buying transportation, or are you financing your own captivity? It's a completely different way to look at your financial choices, isn't it? I really hope this sparked some curiosity for you today. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Now go take a look at your driveway and decide what freedom really means to you.